I remember so well. I can see already some of you are a little sunburned from, standing out there staring at the sun. It has come back, and we're so happy that we have such a great city spread before us under the absolutely fabulous leadership of Mayor Daley and the team that works with him. And it's very nostalgic for me. Every time I come back to Chicago, I just have a flood of memories growing up and all of the wonderful experiences that I've had here. I want to do a couple of things in my brief set of remarks. First, I want to thank you. Thank you for sending the most wonderful team of senators, Dick Durbin and Barack Obama, to the Senate. I don't need to tell you that we are engaged in a very difficult struggle in Washington against the Republican administration and the Republican leadership of the Congress. And I'm so grateful every day that Dick and Barack are there, fighting for you, fighting for Chicago, fighting for Cook County, fighting for Illinois and America. So it's a great honor for me to serve with those two extraordinary public servants. I also want to thank you for your congressional delegation that in the House is doing the very same thing, standing up against this tide of radical, reactionary, right-wing ideology that is out to change America so that we will not recognize it. But we're going to stand in the way. We're going to say, no, we love our country, and we intend to fight for it. I also want to thank you because year in and year out, you have forged an organization that brings city and suburb together, that cuts across racial, religious, ethnic lines, that puts out for the public to see the best face of the Democratic Party. And it's a real example to the rest of the country about what can happen when you have people working to make sure that we don't lose sight of what our real objective is. It's not just to elect Democrats. It is to build a stronger economy, expand opportunity, and give everybody willing to work hard a chance to go as far as their God-given potential will take them. But we know that there are those who don't see the world the way we do. They don't believe in supporting the rights of working people. You heard Father Costello express in a very brief and profound way some of the core values, not just of the Democratic Party, but of America, where we look out for each other, where we believe we can do better when everybody does better, when we know that building a strong community will benefit everyone who's a member of that community. And so for the last 4 years, I have been honored to serve the people of New York and work with my colleagues in the Senate to make sure that we preserve what is best about America. Now, when I first got to the Senate in January of 2001, it became clear to me that the new president and his team wanted to undo everything my husband had done. And I thought that was a mistake. And I thank you for giving Bill Clinton overwhelming votes in 1992 and 1996 so that he could spend 8 years putting our country on the right track. And at the end of his term, we had seen the creation of 23 million new jobs. We had seen people lifted out of poverty and moved into independence and self-sufficiency. We'd seen a boom in people going to college and home ownership. We were on the right track. And we also had a huge budget surplus because during those 8 years, the Democrats had governed with fiscal responsibility that created the largest surplus in the history of America. And the idea behind that was not just to have a big surplus and put the federal Treasury back in the black, the idea behind that was to have the resources to plan for the future, to deal with the challenges facing Medicare, Social Security, making new investments that will lead to us being richer and stronger in the future. And now where are we? The biggest deficit in our country's history, the lowest national savings rate since 1934, which was not a banner year for America. And what does that mean? Well, it means several things. First of all, it means that every single month we have to borrow more than $50 billion from overseas lenders. And who do we borrow it from? Well, we borrow it from the governments of Japan and South Korea and China and other governments around the world. Did you see the other day the president went to the Bureau of Public Debt? I thought at first it was a joke. It was like returning to the scene of the crime. I personally have never been to the Bureau of Public Debt. We were trying to close it down when my husband was president. And you know what he found in the Bureau of Public Debt? He found a big hole all the way to China. Because we have to have those resources coming in because we've gotten ourselves into the position of being a huge debtor. You know, the president and his team in Washington, they just worked really hard to change the bankruptcy laws so that if some poor working person has a medical emergency and they have to mortgage their house and they have to run up their credit cards to be able to pay their medical bills and they have to go into bankruptcy, it will be really, really hard for them. How ironic is it that the administration, which has literally bankrupted our country, wants to keep on spending money we don't have for purposes that are not in the best long-term interests of our country. You know, there's a lot of issues that we worry about and we fight over in Washington, the direction of the economy, what we're going to do about health care costs. Remember, I had a few things to say about that one time. Well, they're back up and people are having a hard time figuring out how they're going to continue to afford insurance. Businesses are having a hard time deciding whether they can continue to provide it. We worry about education to make sure that every one of our kids gets the best start in life. We worry about the fact we're not energy independent, that we're still dependent on countries and places that are unstable. We worry about the environment. We worry about an independent judiciary. This administration wants to literally pack the courts with people who agree with them, and so much else. But you know what it adds up to is that we're not being smart about the future. In every previous generation, think back, leaders, both Democrats and Republicans, made investments that made us richer and stronger. We're not doing that now. And I think it's a big mistake. And what I have urged that we get back looking toward the future and preparing so that our children and grandchildren can have the same kind of opportunity in America that many of us have had. And the other thing that I want you to think about is how this administration and their Republican allies are trying to consolidate power. It's their way or no way. They want to call all the shots. We've never had that in our nation. And we need to say, wait a minute. We need checks and balances, just like the Constitution called for, that make it clear nobody can have absolute power in our system. So I appreciate seeing a huge, huge room filled with strong Democrats, people who understand that the core values of the Democratic Party built the American middle class, kept us safe at home and abroad, created the ladder of opportunity that people like all of us have taken advantage of. And I hope that you'll stay with us, not just here in Illinois, where we have done a great job in sending strong Democrats not only to Washington but to Springfield and here in Chicago and throughout the county. But stay with us so that maybe in 2006, when I'm up for re-election, we'll have a few more Democrats in the Senate. And then in 2008, let's take